Hello, and welcome to your first of 7 video lectures. Today's lecture is going to be all about demand forecasting as well as market research and market data. We're going to talk about primary research, we're going to talk about secondary research, we're going to talk about the research objective and why companies do research. And then we're going to talk a little bit about demand forecasting and how important it is for a marketing manager to understand the demand of his products, to understand who and what people are going to buy in order to bring out new products, in order to make sure that they have sales force quotas, to make sure that they have enough inventories, to make sure that they don't have a back order problem. All those different types of things. Marketing research is really not one of my favorite topics in the world. I'd rather be out selling and developing new products and developing new markets instead of doing research. However, with that being said, I certainly do not discount how important marketing research is. And not only that, but not only gathering the information, but analyzing that information and making it meaningful so that managers can use that information in order to drive productive sales and revenue into their organization. So when we're all done, you're going to have an assignment, and that assignment is to write a 2-page memo to your boss, your pretend boss. You can use me as your boss, or actually write it to your boss if you want, outlining the key points or the key takeaways of this particular lecture. So the very last slide, you'll have the assignment, and the assignment will be written out. But really what you're going to do is you're going to write a 2-page memo, 11-point font, double-spaced, outlining the key takeaways from this lecture. You're going to turn it in to me next week on Monday. Until then, I'm looking forward to seeing you on Monday. Take care, and let's get started. So as I said in the introduction, today's lecture is all about capturing market research, doing market research, developing a market research plan, and then forecasting demand. And as I spoken before, one of the toughest things that a marketing manager could do. So modern marketing information systems really come from 3 sources. The first source would be internal company records. Those would be records that the company keep after you buy something, after you visit a site, etc. They do it through cookies, they do it through other means. If you think about Wegmans, every time you use your Wegmans shoppers card, they have internal records about you. To sign up for a Wegmans shoppers club card, they have your address, they have your age, they have all those different things. So a lot of research comes from internal company records. Then they use those internal company records for 2 things, really, to tell the customer, this is what you bought last time, this is how much you bought last time, do you want to buy it again? Which is exactly what Amazon does. Or they also use those company records to also provide different services, different products, different types of inventory, etc. Sometimes they use those internal company records for demand forecasting, etc., which is what we're going to get into later. The second way of gathering information is really modern marketing intelligent activities. Oftentimes that is done through social media. Monitoring social media. It's done by looking at what's trending, what's hot out there, what's not, what people are chatting about, what people are tweeting about, what people are showing on their Instagram, etc. A lot of this comes from social media and blogs and other things that are going on out there. Companies pay people, a lot of times they're interns, sometimes they're not, but they pay people to make sure that they're monitoring this kind of stuff in order for the activities to be monitored so they understand what's going on, keeping the pulse on the market, etc. And then finally, the last one would be going out and doing market research, either doing market research by yourself within the organization or hiring a firm to do that. So we talked about internal records, order to payment cycles. Those are shoppers club cards, etc. Sales information systems often comes from cash registers or from the net when you buy something on the net, etc. Databases, people sign up for databases, they send out surveys, etc. They sign up for databases. Kohl's captures a tremendous amount of databases because of when you hit their site, or with the Kohl's cash, or with all those types of things, they're putting you in type of database. Some of those databases you can sign up for legitimately. Other times they sign you up for by dropping a cookie, etc. And then what they do is they warehouse that data, and then eventually they mine it. If you think about this, though, the key thing is data mining. That's where it all comes to fruition. It's easy, and I've said this for years now, it's really easy to get information. There's information on you, there's information on your purchasing habits, there's information, all types of information on consumers out there. What really is hard to do is to mine that data and make it meaningful. And that's why right now, what's really hot in academia is data analytics, especially marketing data analytics. There's companies out there that are looking for people who can mine that data to make it meaningful for the company, to make it meaningful for other people, so that they can use that data to help their customers and also to boost sales. Market intelligence, here's the definition in front of you. I'm assuming you can read, so I'm not going to read it. But really, they're gathering marketing intelligence mostly through social media, through blogs, through looking at the web, through seeing what's trending, through seeing what's hot, even catchphrases and things like that they're using in advertising, etc. One of the key catchphrases that you're hearing right now is "Stay in your lane, bro." From that commercial where, I think it was Geico, where the guy was a tattoo artist. And so now, instead of saying "mind your own business," people are saying "stay in your lane, bro." Those are the kind of catchphrases that people are out there looking at what's trending, looking at what's hot, looking at what people are saying, etc., in order to add that into their advertising, into their things like that. So improving marketing intelligence, the key thing is to motivate your sales force to report on new developments. You've got to make sure that your sales force is out there. I know there's a lot of sales forces anymore that are doing a lot of work from their home office, etc., and really not out seeing the customers. A lot of times they're doing it via email, they're doing it by phone, but you really have to get your sales force out there and meeting with the customers and seeing what's out in the marketplace, going to different conventions, going to different trade shows so they can report on the new things that happened. Motivating intermediaries to pass along intelligence. Intermediaries could be suppliers. Intermediaries could be your advertising agencies and things you say like that. Hire external experts to collect intelligence. I was just talking about that. A lot of times that's interns. All they're doing is looking at what is trending, what is the pulse out there. Networking internally, setting up customer advisory panels. Most of your companies now have customer advisory panels. We have it at St. John Fisher. We have a sales advisory board. We have a family business board. We also have a school of business advisory board. And then, of course, just going out and looking at other types of data that's out there. So then you go into the marketing research system. That's where people pay money and they either hire an internal marketing or have an internal marketing research department, or what they could do is they could go out there and they could hire a marketing research firm to do that for them. What they're going to do is they're going to provide information in which a company can act upon. Marketing research firms not only gather the information, it's part of marketing research jobs to actually assimilate the information and make the information meaningful. But the key is they've got to make sure that they understand what are they trying to do, What information are they trying to gather? Who are they trying to gather it from, etc. So the marketing research system, or the marketing research information system, is only as good. It's only as good as the question in which you're trying to answer. The question must be very measurable. The question must be very succinct. So all marketing research starts with a question or an objective. And it's like everything I've been saying in marketing. Everything starts with who are you going to do what to? And therein lies the question, and therein lies where your marketing research will have to start. So here's American Marketing Association definition of marketing research. Links consumer, customer, and public to the marketer through information. Basically, marketing research is all about information, but it's not, again, it's not just information that you're after. What we're looking for with regards to marketing research is not only are we looking for information, but we're looking for information that solves a problem, information that solves a question, information that helps an organization drive sales, drive revenue, drive hits to their websites, drive new customers, all those types of things. If you're just gathering information, most companies already have that. What they need to do is make that information meaningful. Therein again lies that data analytics, which is a really hot thing right now going on in the academic world. So 3 categories of marketing research firms: syndicated research firms, which all they do is they gather information, they take that information, they disseminate information, they put it out for the public to see and for the public to use. Generally speaking, what they do is they have websites out there full of information, full of meaningful information. You either subscribe to that website, or what you do is you pull it down for a particular fee. So there's a lot of research firms. Gordon Black is one of them here in Rochester. Donnelly is another one. Donnelly used to do the phone books. Now they're into the research. The big one, though, is the marketing intelligence that does the TV sweeps. And I can't remember. Gordon Black, Donnelly. Can't remember the name of it. It'll come to me all in a flash. They do the sweeps for TV. They're one of the biggest firms out there. Darn, don't you hate that? Anyways, they're a syndicated research firm. Then there's custom marketing research firms where they go out there and they actually solicit business, and you go to them and you say, this is exactly what I want to know. This is exactly what I need to know, etc. That information is very expensive. The studies take a long time. The problem with it is, in a lot of industries, the market is changing so quickly. By the time the study's done, the information you're getting is already prehistoric, and you're already a dinosaur with that information. So anyways, you've got to make sure that the custom marketing research firm does a good job and does it quickly, because the market is so dynamic, especially with information movement right now. The market is so dynamic. It moves so quickly that if it's going to take a year, if it's going to take 6 months to get that information is already too old actually to use. And then specialty line marketing research firms that specialize in a specific industry. It might specialize in a specific product. It might specialize on a specific target market or group, like Hispanics. Hispanic is a group that is growing so rapidly in the United States that people are trying to get a handle on the Hispanic market because it is so lucrative if you could tap that market. Asian market, something like that. So with the Hispanic market and Asian market, those are specialty line type of marketing research firms that concentrate in a particular line or concentrate in a particular industry. So the marketing research process, we're going to go over that. The first thing is you've got to define a problem. What do you want to know? And you've got to understand, why do you want to know it? Do you want to know it to drive sales? Do you want to know it to drive revenue? Do you want to know it to drive new products, to develop new products, etc.? So you've got to define your problem. Then you develop your plan. You're going to do it internally. You're going to do it externally. Are you going to do it through intelligence on the web? Are you going to go out and look for secondary research? You're going to have a primary research firm do it. Then you collect information or have someone collect information. You analyze, you present, and then you make a decision. You take a look at your decision. You say, was that the right decision? If it was the right decision, you keep on going. If it wasn't the right decision, then you tweak it. So the first step, define problem and alternatives. You've got to define the problem, you define the decision alternative, and you define the research objective. Sometimes it's as easy as saying, do I bring out this product or do I bring out this product? Or what size of product? Does someone want a 12-ounce product? Does someone want a 16-ounce product? What is the best color? What is the best flavor? What flavors work? What flavors don't work? Those types of things. So sometimes it's all about a new product or maybe a product modification, like a new iPhone. All right, you can only do so much with a cell phone. So do you want to know, are people more interested in the camera? Are they more interested in speed, etc.? And so once you understand what you're trying to do, you define the problem, you define the decision, then you define your research objectives. So step 2, oh, by the way, Nielsen. That's who I was thinking of. Nielsen, the Nielsen ratings. Those are the TV sweeps. Nielsen also is a research firm that does a lot of data gathering, puts it on their website. You can pull it down, or you can subscribe to their website, etc. So Nielsen is who I was thinking about. Knew I'd get it, just doesn't know when. So the second thing we need to do is develop a research plan. There's 2 types of data. There's secondary data and there's primary data. Very simply, the secondary data is stuff that you're getting off the internet, stuff that's already been done, surveys that have already been done, etc. Primary data is getting it straight from the horse's mouth, and that is your own survey data, it's your own focus groups, it's going out and it's observation, it's asking people, etc. So secondary data is generally speaking much more inexpensive. You can go on and find on the internet, you can find on Google, etc. Or different websites. Gartner puts out a different, has a different product for IT, for data, etc., secondary data. And then, of course, there's primary data. So as you're developing your research plans, the way to get primary data is observation, is to go out and watch people. Focus group research is having a bunch of people together and asking those people questions on a focus group. Oftentimes, those are types of taste tests or asking them what kind of product they want, what they're looking for, etc. So that's focus group research. I actually did one on beer, if you can believe that. My favorite topic. Survey research would be just going out and doing survey. Qualtrics is the big one. Qualtrics is the survey method that most people use. We use it here at St. John Fisher. Other companies use it. Qualtrics is huge. They're one of the #1 survey research firms. Behavioral research is watching people as they behave. Oftentimes, behavioral research is done with children. So if you're going to bring out a new toy, they put a whole bunch of toys in the room, they put a whole bunch of kids in the room, and they watch which ones fight over the toy. Whichever one they're fighting over is the one they're going to launch. And then finally, experimental research, which has laboratory as well as outside research. A lot of that is done on the psychologic, the sociologic type of trends, etc. So research plan can be questionnaires, qualitative measures, and technological devices. You know all about that. Questionnaires would be Qualtrics surveys. Qualitative measures would be taking a look at what's going on in the industry, how the trends are coming up, how the trends are going down. For instance, population growth, population expansion, and also other demographic type of qualitative measures. And then finally, using technological devices, which is observing through webcams, camcorders, and things like that. Um, Lots and lots and lots of questions about privacy these days regarding technological devices. I know that who was it? Facebook got sued. Other people are getting sued for invasion of privacy and using that type of data and using those types of, I guess it would be data in order to sell it to companies, and they are getting very starting to blur that area, so to speak. Your sampling plan: whom should we survey? How many people should we survey? This is not a statistics course, but there are different statistical measures and statistical means to determine how many people need to be surveyed and how should we choose the respondents. Remember, everything in marketing starts with who are you going to do what to. So you want to make sure that you are surveying your target market. If you're surveying somebody else, it's not going to really work for you. So you've got to survey your target market, make sure you understand your target market. So sometimes your surveys can be just very small. Sometimes it can be very large. Your sample size might be huge if you're looking at the entire population, or it could be very small if you're looking for just a subset of the population. The other thing is you got to make sure your sampling plan is statistically significant. You know, if you want to know what the United States is doing, you cannot survey 3 people. And oftentimes, that's where managers fall down. They go out and they see 3 or 4 of their customers, and they make a decision based on those 3 or 4 customers, when in fact they might have 1,000 customers, and those 3 or 4 customers do not represent an accurate sample. It's happened to me in many of my careers out there where management has made a decision based on 2 or 3 of our best customers, where that's not really the pulse of the market. And then, of course, you develop your research plan. How are you going to get this sampling information? You're going to do it by mail, telephone, in person, online. The cheapest way, obviously, is online, is to try to roll a Qualtrics survey through social media. When I do research at St. John Fisher, that's how we do it. We roll it on social media, trying to get the most accurate data that we can and trying to get it from our target market. If you're going to survey millennials, the best way to do it is online. If you're going to survey boomers or somebody else, that might be through the mail, through the telephone, or something like that. All depending on your target market would be the way that you use your research plan. And then finally, you collect the information. Hopefully you got good information. You've got information that works for you. You got information that you can use, etc. Then you analyze the information to try to make it meaningful. Therein lies the rub, as I've said before. Data analytics is key. You got to have somebody who knows what they're doing when they're analyzing the data, because you could get false findings, you could make decisions on false findings, and that could really jeopardize your organization. It could jeopardize your marketing plan, and it could send people out of business. I mean, look at look at Netflix versus Blockbuster. You know, Netflix bet on the fact that people will not want to go to the stores to browse movies. Blockbuster said, no, people are going to they want to come in and they want to browse movies. They want to see what's the latest in the trends in movies. Guess who won? Blockbuster's out of business, and Netflix owns the streaming market. So, you know, you could have false data. Then you present the findings, you make the decision. Hopefully the decision that you made is a good one. If it isn't, then you tweak it. Oftentimes people make a decision in stages so that they're not putting all their eggs in the one proverbial basket. Sometimes they don't. So it all depends on how you're going to do it. So that we're going to kind of leave right now. We're going to kind of leave marketing research, and we're going to go into forecasting demand. As I said in the introduction, forecasting demand is one of the most difficult things that a marketing person can do. Think about demand. The reason that you need to forecast demand is for really inventory, and for also making sure that you have enough for your particular target market. Inventory is the great waste. If you have too much, you're tying up a lot of money in inventory. It becomes way, way too expensive. If you have too little, you go on a back order situation where you don't have product for your customers and you lose sales, which is even worse than having too much inventory. So marketing and sales are always fighting with production. Marketing and sales wants to make sure that we have plenty of inventory on hand because they don't want to lose sales. Production is always looking at, I don't want to carry this inventory because it's too expensive. So it is marketing's job to forecast demand. It is marketing's job to understand how much are we going to need a particular product. And with those decisions, they can either make or break an organization, especially if it's a heavy manufacturing organization. The other thing is new products. How do you forecast a new product? Think about an iPhone. You're going to come out with the iPhone 120. I don't know how many iPhones are out there right now. I don't use them. But you've got the iPhone 121s coming out now. How many do you manufacture for startup? Is it going to take off? Or is the demand going to be more slowly? And therein lies the rub. So understanding forecasting, understanding demand, etc., is a very key thing. So market demand measures is your potential market. How many people potentially could use the product? How many people could potentially use the service? And then of that, what is the availability of them? How is it already penetrated? Is it growing? Is it not growing? Also, who's your target market? Is your target market very small or is your target market very wide? Look at Coca-Cola. Coca-Cola's target market is the entire world, right? But if you look at something that is, say, not as consumer driven, then your target market is much, much smaller. And then finally, how much of the market is penetrated? Is it totally penetrated and you're just looking at growth from population? Or is it not penetrated and you're looking at a lot of growth? Look at the cell phone business right now. The cell phone industry is almost totally penetrated. The only time people are buying phones is for upgrades, or if their phone dies on them, which mine is about ready to. Anyways, so if you look at that, you know that market is penetrated. So you've got to forecast demand based on really not a lot of new users, but users that want to either upgrade or users that have their product is not working anymore. So the market demand function, you're looking at really three things. First of all, market share. What is your share of the market? If you look at Coca-Cola, they have a huge share of the soft drink market, whereas Pepsi is coming in second. What is your market forecast? What are you forecasting the market to be? What is the market potential? Basically, the market potential and the market forecast will then determine how much product you have available and how much product you need to make sure that you have as far as your suppliers go, etc., etc. So the reason that we have a market demand is for the company demand. The sales forecast, you got to make sure that you're forecasting for your sales force and also making sure that you have an appropriate quota for your sales force. All those things are very important when it comes to the market demand. So again, we talked about total market potential. What is the potential? How many people could use the product? What is your target market? And then what is your area market potential? And then take a look at the industry sales and industry market share. What is your market share? So if you look at your market potential, say your market potential is 1 billion units, your share is 30%. That would mean that you're going to sell 300 million units. Is your share going to go up? 31%, 32%? Is your share going to go down? Look at something like HP when they came out with their printers, right? HP at one point in time had 70% of the market share in personal printers or desktop printers. They knew that they were not going to grow anymore. They knew that their market share was going to go down. They absolutely knew that because there's no way you can sustain 70% of your market share. So what did they do? They vertically integrated and they came out with computers. And now HP owns not only the personal printing business, but they also own the personal computing business. They did that knowing that their potential was at its absolute peak. So methods of sales forecasting, survey methods. There's a composite method where you take a look at all of the different sales and trends in the industry, and you go out and you gather a whole bunch of data. You can look at expert opinions. A lot of times you'll look at a professor that knows a lot about that particular industry, or somebody that knows a lot about a particular industry, and they can help you with your forecast. You could do a market test to take a look at like a pre-launch in a particular area, test it to see what the demand is for that, or you could look at past sales analysis. I can tell you as we speak, because I've been doing it for 30 years, the way people do it is looking at past sales analysis. There's oftentimes is what people say is we need to grow 5%. Last year we sold 1 million units. This year we're going to sell 1,050,000. Yes, 10% would be 100,000. Yes, 1,050,000 units. I did that pretty quick, didn't I? That's not the way to go, though. That's kind of like driving your car by looking in the rear view mirror. But that's how most people do, because it's the cheapest method, etc., the cheapest way to do it. The best way to forecast demand is to use all 5. To ask people, ask experts, ask your customers, ask the people that are closest to your customers, ask your distributors, to use past sales analysis, to test it in different markets, to look at, survey your buyers, all those types of things. Putting them all together is the way to go. You can be the most accurate as possible, but people don't because it's expensive. Surveying, sales force opinions, expert opinions, market tests are all expensive. So most VPs of sales or VPs of marketing say, you gave me this last year, give me this plus 5% this year. And that's how it's done. Not a good method, but if you ask most people, that's the way it's done. So analyzing the environment really is a good way to look at demand, to look at what's happening in your industry, to look at what new products you need to bring out in your industry, to look at new target markets for your industry, etc. When you look at the macro environment, there's really 2 things. One of them is trends, one of them is fads. Trends being long-term, fads being very short-term flash in the pan. Fads being like a silly band or some different fads in clothing, etc., etc. With a fad, you want to forecast how long the fad is going to be, and you want to produce and sell to the fad. You don't want to be the last one holding those products, but you want to try to make as much money as you possibly can. Look at silly bands. Everybody got into silly bands, and man, they're everywhere. Finally, they fizzled out, and a lot of people were left with a lot of inventory. You don't want to be the last one holding that product. But with fads, you can make a lot of money very quickly. You won't believe this because it's hard for me to believe also. But if you lived through the 70s like I did, fads were big in the 70s, and the biggest fad in the 70s was pet rocks. No kidding. A rock that came in a box. It was a rock. It was just a rock. It came in a box. You could name it. You could do all types of things. It came with little instructions on care and feeding. Of course, it's a rock. There is no care and feeding, etc. The guy sold 8 million of them. 8 million pet rocks at an average cost of $3 a rock. Remember, this is early 70s. $3 in the early 70s would be like $10 today. He sold 8 million of them. He became rich on a fad. But at that time, we were still engaged in the Vietnam War. The country needed something. They were looking for something. Pet rocks were the answer. Everybody bought one. Mood rings were another one. Mood rings were great, but they weren't like pet rocks. People would wear mood rings. They were big in the 70s too, but the big one was pet rocks. I bring that up because about 4 years ago, the guy finally died that brought up and he was rich. I mean, he never had to work again in his life. So really something. That's a fad. Trends, on the other hand, those are long term. That is what's shaping America, shaping the world, shaping the universe, the planet, etc. So those are what people want to take a look at. What are the trends? And there are specific trends that people need to look at. Those trends are demographic, economic, sociocultural, natural, technological, and political legal. I'm going to go briefly over each one of those. Demographic looks at population as well as looks at age. Do we have an aging population? What types of groups are emerging? What countries are emerging? If you look at, again, I mentioned this earlier in the lecture, the Hispanic population is really emerging as a force in the United States. And that Hispanic population carries a lot of buying power. So that would be a demographic environment. The aging population, boomers 46 to 60, there was a huge amount of boomers. Right now they're getting older. Oftentimes they're looking at assisted live, 46 to 60, meaning born in 1946 to 1960. So now those people that are born in the 40s, born in the 50s, are looking at an aging population. They're looking at retirement. They're looking at assisted living, those types of things. People are living longer. That's also a demographic. We are becoming more of a diverse nation. The millennials out there, as well as the Zs, Generation Zs, are embracing diversity like no other generation before them. All of those types of things are the demographic and environmental trends that are going on right now. Household patterns. People are having less children, and women tend to be having children later in life. They're establishing their careers, then they're having children, then they're going back into their careers. All of those are demographic changes that are happening in the United States today. You look at the economic environment. The economy ebbs and flows. Are we in a recession? Are we coming out of a recession? Are we in a boom? Because if we're in a boom, which we are right now, by the way, if we're in a boom, then eventually we know that a recession is coming. The economy will ebb and flow. So we need to take a look at that economy. What is the income distribution? Are the rich getting richer and the poor getting poorer? Is there a wage gap? Is there continuing to be a wage gap? Not only a wage gap with women, which we know there is, but there's also is there a wage gap between the have and the have-nots? Is there a shrinking middle class? What is the income? What is the debt? What is the debt to ratio population when it comes to consumer debt? There was a big scare about consumer debt about 10 years ago, but now that's somewhat subsided. So all of those are the economic environment. And we talked about income distribution, the expanding income distribution of the 1% out there, and the growing population of the working poor. The socio-cultural environment. What does the views of society? What are the trends in this society? What is the views of ourselves? What are the views of others? Are we embracing diversity? Are we not embracing diversity? What's the views of organizations? Are we becoming more and more Big Brother is watching us? Are we embracing larger organizations? From a societal standpoint, is society becoming more risque? Is it becoming less risque? That tends to ebb and flow also. It has a great deal to do with the advertising and how you advertise and the advertising you put on TV, etc. You know, if you look at the social cultural environment, especially when you look at pushing the envelope with regards to sexual content on TV, as well as sexual content on commercials, it ebbs and flows. You know, the public becomes more accepting of, say, sexual content, and then all of a sudden something happens and the public becomes less accepting of sexual content. Janet Jackson fiasco in the Super Bowl a few years ago, well, a number of years ago, I guess now, really changed the society's look at what is appropriate and what is not appropriate on TV and what is appropriate and not appropriate on commercials. With the Trump administration, certainly the views of society, the views of leadership has changed. And I'll leave it up to you whether you say it's changed for the good or the worse. So core cultural values, are they changing? And then subcultures, what subcultures are emerging? You know, the emerging millennial subcultures, but then that can be really segmented much, much further into the different classifications of millennials, where there's more millennials becoming educated. There's more groups with shared beliefs, values, preferences, and all those types of things. The natural environment, you know, is environmental aspects becoming greater or less? Are people becoming more and more environment? And that ebbs and flows too. After the Gulf, the BP spill in the Gulf, we take a look at more of our natural environment and more of our protection, and then it kind of ebbs a little bit and then it flows again. And then finally, the technological environment. The technological environment is absolutely huge. Technology is changing so fast because of data movement and all those types of things. It's becoming more and more of a force to be reckoned with. And then finally, the political legal environment is the last trend that you take to look at. What are the laws, government agencies, pressure groups, what do they call those groups? Lobbyists. What's going on in the political legal environment? Is the country under a conservative government, or are they under a more liberal government? Are there new laws that are prohibitive to business? Are new laws that are helpful to new business? Not only that, but what's going on in the world? Is the world at unrest? Is it continuing to be unrest? Are there threats in different parts of the world, such as North Korea or the Middle East or something like that? All of those are going to have a impact on your particular organization or your particular demand and what have you. So that concludes today's video lecture. Here's your assignment. I want you to take and look at the key points that you have learned from this particular lecture, and I want you to write a 1 to 2 page memo to your boss, your pretend boss. You can write it to me as your pretend boss, or if you really have a boss, you know, you can write it to them. But I want you to pretend that you are writing a memo to your boss, not an academic paper. I want you to make sure that you're doing it as a professional paper. Be succinct. Write it as you would a business memo. Double space it. I want 11-point font, no more than 2 pages. And I want you to outline the key points or the key takeaways from this lecture. And I want you to turn it in to me hard copy on Monday when we get back together. Until then, I look forward to seeing you next Monday.